Personnel and Finance meeting to order. It's February 7th, 2022. We'll start with introductions. We'll start going around the table.
Tiffany Stingline, Ward 3.
Brian Kelm from Country Manor.
Kevin Hargett from Country Manor.
Jennifer Bergman, City Administrator.
Connie Hillman, City Finance Director.
David Chansky, Community Development Director.
Kevin Stunek, Alderman at Large.
Chris Schubert, HR Director.
Mike Besta, Police Chief.
Teresa Burke, Brainerd Dispatch.
Jan Berry, the Center.
Gabe Johnson, Chair of the committee.
And we do have somebody online.
Oh, and there is somebody online. Marin, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Marin. I'm the associate with Kenny Graveman.
Welcome. Okay, 7 items on the agenda tonight. The first one of which is the consideration of a Country Manor public financing request for tax abatement. David.
Yep, okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the city has received an application for public financing for tax abatement from the Foundation for Healthcare Continuums, also known as Country Manor. The request is for $1.75 million tax abatement over 15 years. There was a memo attached to the packet that was sent, provided to the EDA. You may remember during a work session between the City Council and the EDA early last year, the City Council asked the EDA to vet and make recommendations about economic development projects. So this request first went to the EDA last Thursday for their consideration and for them to make a recommendation to the City Council. Upon hearing from Brian and Kevin, and then looking at information the staff provided, as well as some preliminary revenue projections that was done for the city by Michaela Huitt and Paul Steinman with Baker Tilly, the EDA did make a motion to recommend that the City Council do conduct tax abatement for Country Manor in the amount of 45% over 10 years upon completion of the project. That, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'm on the EDA, so I'm like in the know of what's happening. Do you guys have any questions about the project? Would you like them to give a brief overview of what they're doing?
I'm fine, I think it's fine, I read over the stuff, I think it's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Excellent. So right now, the motion we're going to look for is to direct staff to prepare necessary documents to initiate the statutory process to approve 45% tax abatement for 10 years for Country Manor.
Nice move.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. This gets the process going on tax abatement, but we are also going to, you're also going to ask the school district and the county.
Correct.
And if you don't get participation from them, you may be coming back here trying to increase this 45%, because that happened with your St. Joseph
That's correct.
development.
Yeah, in St. Joseph, the school district participated, was excited about it, and the county basically said they've never done tax abatement, they're not interested in listening to tax abatement, and we gave a good presentation, but they said no. So then we went back to St. Joseph and they picked up the difference, is how they handled it here.
In a perfect world, what would you be asking the school district and or the county for?
For the total allotment between the three
Okay.
parties of the
Okay.
1.75 million.
The total ask is 1.7.
Okay,
And based on Baker Tilly's math numbers, we think we can come in at half of the 1.7, because Brainerd's about half of the tax bill, with 45% abatement for 10
Okay.
years. That may change depending on how.
so this gets the ball rolling for down the road.
Mr. Chair, if I may as well, there was discussion also with the EDA of, do you want city staff to partner with Country Manor as they do go make these requests?
Oh,
to the
yeah,
county
do you
and
want
school
to
district?
amend your motion and direct staff and the mayor to work with Country Manor to talk to the school districts and county?
I think that sends more power, yeah, I would amend that.
Okay. Yeah, fine. Okay, so we'll add that to the motion upstairs. Good catch, David. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Number 2, Police Officer Joshua Clausen resignation. Chief.
Mr.
Thank you. Thank you. January 25th, 2022, Officer Josh Clausen submitted a letter of resignation, and it was effective immediately. Josh was on step 4 of the field training program. This resignation makes our current staffing level back to 24, the 26 budgeted for 2022. So the recommended action is this: to accept Officer Joshua Clausen's resignation effective January 25th, 2022.
I move to accept Joshua Clausen's resignation effective January 25th, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any questions? I mean, just on the police staffing levels, I mean, you're pretty much constantly going through the hiring process till we get up to 27.
Yeah,
So
yes.
this doesn't really change that, you're still just,
We're still, yeah, so right now we have 2 in the field training program, and we're in the kind of the latter stages of another one that we're currently backgrounding, so.
Is it a fair question to ask why? Or not? And that's fine if it's not.
Yeah, it's probably not, but he just wasn't successful in
Okay,
the
that's all I
last
care.
stage of the field training.
Okay.
hearing no other discussion, we'll vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item number 3, approve professional services contract with Widset for design services for the public safety cold storage facility.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a police officer, not an engineer.
Yeah.
All the way to the build still. So, because I'm building a house.
Well, you kind of engineered the police department.
Yes, yes. So what we have here is, attached to this request is a proposal from WIDSEF for the design plan preparation and construction administration for the police cold storage building that was included in the 2022 budget for construction. Prior to all this, I thought Paul would be here to better explain this, but I can work through this. So being the lot and the civil side of the parcel was done by the street department this past summer, some of those expenses initially that was brought forward by WISTEF's, the attachment, from 32,000, substantially went down because we did a bunch of work in-house by our own staff. So the total proposed fee, after all that, went down to $3,500. Whit Smith has been doing some legwork behind the scenes to garner quotes from vendors, and we got 2 quotes for the proposed 205 budget, 205,000 budget. 2 quotes have been received, one from Lynn Masonry and one from Monaga Pole Barns. The proposals were $171 and $171,050 and $227,472 for Monaga Pole Barn. In working with WIDSEF through the process, we should be able to stay under the competitive bidding threshold so that the full-scale engineering architectural drawings do not have to be formulated along with a proposal package, thus reducing the cost significantly. Their design fee reflects not performing full-scale bid documents. So what this really means is that we're going to be drastically under from the 205, and Paul and I, in meeting with Widsmith, thought that it was more reasonable about the 180, depending on something else kind of arises from that. So well under the 205 that was budgeted. So the recommendation of staff recommends approval of the attached professional services contract with Widsmith in the amount of $3,500 for the public safety cold storage facility.
And I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion or questions? I have a couple.
Oh, well, I just feel like you jinxed the project by saying it's gonna come in under.
Well, I don't ever, because I'm building right now, so whenever they say that it should be
Yeah.
under, nothing in my
No.
personal is under, so, I think that with some of that issues with steel and some of the other stuff, like, Paul says, and so I'll agree with Paul.
I have a question. Why are we contracting with Widseth when we're building a pole barn? Like why are we bringing in engineers and architects and surveyors when we want a pole barn?
I asked that question because apparently I think that we need to do it, is from what my understanding is. And if you look at some of
Said
this.
the engineer?
Yes.
Well,
Not me.
A lot of it could be code.
Yeah,
Codes
so,
of building too.
yeah, so a lot of it I think has to do with codes, especially when I know with the electrical stuff, it has to be a certain way. You have to have it, up to commercial code. My guess is the same. They had talked about doing some stormwater runoff, which we actually designed that and put it in ourselves, and so a lot of those costs, they don't have to come out and do that because we've already done that. So that's where the conversation with them is that the 30,000 and the city saved themselves a lot by doing a lot of the works. I mean, if you've been out there, it is off to scale already. They did great work out there, so they kind of saved us some money.
And
Okay.
we always take our service contracts to be approved by council. So,
Just cold storage too.
Correct.
Okay, just keep the cars out of the beating sun, right?
Yes, yeah, and so it's already fenced in, it's already, and we've done a lot of work.
So how big is the building?
I think the specs are, let me see what we got total here. 60 by 90,
Okay.
with a couple doors, a couple overhead doors that got kind of be able to drive the tow trucks in one you know.
Out the other way.
So it works
Right.
out real well, so. We don't need, you know, all windows do it, they don't need that, so it's a pretty easy build. I
Simple
think.
building.
Okay, and then finally, I wouldn't be performing my role on this council if I didn't point out that when the police department asked for this lot of land in the fall of 2019, it was promised that they would never, what a preposterous question, would never, and Mike wasn't the chief at the time, they'll never need a building on that property. They need a fence, it's a $16,000 project. So I want to vote no, but I won't, but I'm gonna mention that again upstairs.
We did get evicted though.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, also, and my apologies, I did not say this, Council President asked about potential for bus storage in the future. And are we thinking about that? Will we have to redesign the building? So that was
As far as
another.
garage doors,
Yep. It was another consideration for the future. I know
be
that
cheaper to
one
do it
thing.
now than later.
We went with large doors, we went, I think 16s.
Okay. And I think that was for the buses.
Correct.
If-
Yeah, the police department can lease bus storage to the transportation buses for $1 million a year, that's fine.
I'll work on that.
$6,000 a month, I think, is what they pay over at MP Center.
But okay, any other discussion on the design service contract for the cold storage? Hearing none, we'll vote, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, chief.
Did we get a second on my motion? Did you second
Yes.
it?
Yeah. That brings us to number 4, another professional service contract with Widseth for design services for another addition on the Public Works
So
facility?
this is the same addition. When we were looking at the contract for the cold storage, we're like, well, where's the contract for the street garage addition? And we realized that we had never gotten the contract that Winseth had done for that building when we did it. So the contract was for $26,000, but we've actually only paid them about $5,700, and that's all that we think that we'll end up paying Winseth. So we're going back to approve the contract that we had with Winseth, that they've already performed their duties.
And essentially, the services have been rendered, I mean, that
Yes.
project's pretty well wrapped up,
Yes.
right?
Yes, the services have been rendered. It was something that we don't recall ever, having council approve this, and so we're bringing it to you now.
I move to approve the services agreement.
Okay, second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the professional services contract. Any discussion?
And I'm glad that we'll be under budget for the cold storage, because we are over budget on the street garage addition. We had budgeted 468, and we're up to about 520,000 right now. So it's good that we'll be under budget.
Can we use state aid funds for the construction of a street garage?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I'd like to see you have that, make that happen.
Can we just front $520,000 in state aid?
Good luck with that.
That's in our construction fund, and that's why we need a balance in there as well we're off on our budgets and estimates, so.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, that motion carries. 5, ratify hiring of park temporary seasonal employees. Chris?
So our Parks Division has hired a couple of people since the last meeting. One of them is a warming house attendant. She's mainly the backup person if someone is sick or has another issue come up. And then we have a pond hockey official. So at this time, we're asking for the committee to ratify their hiring.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to ratify the temporary and seasonal employees over at the Parks Department. Any discussion?
Just a quick question. How many hours does a referee get?
I have no idea.
It's per game, it's not per
Referee
hour.
get
It's
paid
per game, $30 a game. Okay.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Number 6, annual review and approval of the investment policy. I hope you guys looked over it, reviewed it with a fine tooth comb.
This time there was no counties in there that we needed to adjust the city, so I was happy about that. But there's no changes recommended at this time.
I move to approve the policy as presented.
Oh, second.
As presented, it does not give us the opportunity, the option to invest in Bitcoin or anything like it. You're only in CDs,
Even if they're locally mined.
I mean, it's sustainable.
I don't even know if that's a law.
There was a
for states
backhoe in my
have.
backyard today. Does that make any difference?
You remember somebody got fired for that?
Safety of principle is kind of the main thing, so we're good to go.
By the dip. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Moves us to number 7, consider RFPs for charter contribution organizations.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you know, Ordinance 1520 did change the language of contributions to our community organizations. Instead of specifically referring to organizations, it broadened that language. While the section of the senior center was always kind of vague, not organization specific, it was about organizations serving seniors. The other two did name specific organizations. Those were changed to an arboretum or green space organization, or and also a organization that does events and community action. The other thing that changed in that ordinance was went from a half mil. The term mill hasn't been used for decades. And so that language was changed to 1.5% of last year's levy. So those were the changes that were made to the ordinance. The recommendation was to do requests for proposals. Since we now have 3 categories, all 3 of these contracts expired in 2022. Notice was sent out to all 3 organizations that the agreements would end March 31st of 2022. The recommendation then was to do an RFP to look for organizations in those 3 categories. At the last meeting, the council appointed Councilman Stunek and Councilman Erickson to be on a subcommittee. Last Monday, we met, we went through the RFPs, draft RFPs, made some changes based on their guidance and recommendations. So that is what is before you today. We are asking that you authorize staff to publish the request for proposals for events and community action, green space or an arboretum, and senior citizen programs. I also in there included the timeline in which that would happen. We decided it was best to give these organizations at least 30 days because they probably have to bring these to their board for board approval. We would have them due back on the 10th. The subcommittee then would reconvene the week of March 14th to review the proposals, and then a recommendation would come back here to the Personnel and Finance Committee for a recommendation to the full council at the March 21st City Council meeting. We hope to also have the agreements on that agenda also, but we didn't want to anticipate for sure we could do that, so we also have April 4th as a backup date for the actual agreements after the council does select those organizations. Happy to answer any questions. Councilman Stunek was also at the subcommittee meeting. I think we had a
very good meeting. We're all on the same page. We're looking at possibly a 5-year agreement versus 10. I think we agreed with that as a committee, and that will come up as we move forward. But I totally agree with this.
Who was at the meeting?
Tad, me, Deanne came, and Jennifer.
Okay, so at the last, when we created this subcommittee, I was concerned about this being done behind closed doors and in the dark. I specifically requested that this would be done, that we would conduct the public's business in the eyes of the public. I wasn't notified. Were you notified of this meeting?
No.
No, it wasn't posted in the dispatch, but we invited an employee of one of the organizations that currently receives. Did we invite Candace from the Arboretum, or?
I invited Deanne because I'm on the board at Senior Center, or at the center.
So this meeting was conducted privately, invited certain members of the community while excluding others?
Dave knew, but he chose not to come because of his dual roles between mayor and director of community action.
It just doesn't pass the sniff test for me. I don't like it. I don't think that's conducting the public's business in public. I think that's wrong. I don't think that meeting should have happened. I think it should have happened publicly. And I think if we're inviting one employee from an organization, we should open it up to any organization that is interested in submitting in this request for proposal. I think the process is tainted. I think I have serious concerns. I have serious problems with what happened. And I'm going to vote no because I'm not happy with how it happened. But I'll take a motion to approve it.
I'll make a motion to authorize staff to publish the request for proposal for events and community action, green space or arboretum, and senior citizen programs.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion?
I somewhat tend to maybe agree with Gabe. probably should have been published in the paper like we do everything else for meetings. I don't think there was anything shady or went on behind closed doors. I made Deanna aware of it because I'm on the board. Tad chose to do what Tad does because he's the liaison over there. And I did talk to Dave. Dave chose to stay clean because of his mayorship and his director of community action.
And Mr. Chair, I do have a comment. I don't know if you want me to comment during the
I
motion
don't
or
need
after.
you can comment if you'd like.
We did this following the same process that was done with the EDA, where a subcommittee for that was also selected. However,
I don't recall Tyler Glenn being I was on that subcommittee.
We did
I don't
not-
recall Tyler Glenn being at the meetings.
we did not invite, I was just gonna say, we did not invite any of the potential proposers to the EDA subcommittee meeting.
I think some of this, correct me if I'm wrong, to have the meeting after our last council meeting was to try to fast track a little bit of this so we can give them time to do their work.
Mr.
Maybe I'm
Chair, if
wrong.
I may?
Yeah.
I think my sense of the subcommittee really was to help staff draft the request for proposals that then would be brought to Personnel and Finance and brought to the full city council for their review. So this really was, in my mind, a subcommittee was to help staff make sure that we were kind of on the right track. Where it was held publicly is here in draft form and at the council in draft form. But to comment, Gabe, I think that we should, if the council so chooses to move this forward like that, then I believe we should open the subcommittee meeting and make sure that that is published when we review the proposals. If the council would like to continue doing this with a subcommittee, and maybe that isn't the next step that should be done when proposals are reviewed.
Maybe the next step would be when the RFPs are returned,
That's what I'm
rather
saying.
than do the subcommittee that comes to us.
Full
and we review
personnel and
it or
finance.
however, and then move forward with that. I mean, I'd be comfortable either way, but
And
even
not
if we
do-
do it at a subcommittee level, it's gonna come here anyway, so we can eliminate a meeting or whatever.
Eliminate the subcommittee meeting and just bring all proposals to personnel and
Yeah.
finance that is published and open to the public.
Yeah.
Any other discussion?
Thank you for letting me speak.
Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. That motion carries. And then just one final thing, because there are people watching the meeting tonight and are concerned that the center was already defunded. There are a lot of lies going around in the community, a lot of people misinforming others, saying that the Brainerd City Council already voted to defund the center. Those are all-based lies. Didn't happen. It never happened. We amended our charter last year, and we took out an obsolete term, mill levy, and we replaced it with 1.5% of last year's budget, or last year's total levy, which is effectively the same amount of money. This RFP process is not related to the removing of mill levy and adding 1.5%. This is about the expiring contracts. Anybody listening at home, this is about the expiring contracts with those three organizations and the city renegotiating with the entities that provide the services. If you're spreading lies, if you're acting in bad faith, it does not make me want to work with you for another 5 years. That is my piece. I will say it for people watching the council meeting too. Anything else before we adjourn this meeting?
I've had a ton of phone calls.
I've had to explain to you,
Emails.
3-4 people. It's-
Tons of calls and emails
Three or four
every day.
people, huh?
Every day, reiterating that, I mean, people are angry at me because we took the money away. I said, there's been not one penny done.
Somebody's
with
dragging the
anything.
city council through the
Take a
mud.
deep breath. The charter's been tweaked a little bit because it needed to be, and the language is different. Nothing is, no decision has been made. So, thank you.
And thank you for fielding the bulk of the calls, because as the liaison, you probably, they see you on the website. Oh, okay. Hearing nothing else, we're adjourned. We have 5 minutes, so we reconvene.